On the equity market?
Well, obviously, if you can assume a loan at a 5 3/4, 6.5% loan, it looks much more desirable than to go in and have to renegotiate at current competitive interest rates. It increases your monthly payment. There are increased costs in bringing about a new loan, and it'll affect the whole pattern of sales throughout the residential.
If you had to renegotiate and make new loans on each of these loans that come up for sale, wouldn't this mean that we could possibly have a shortage of mortgage funds?
Well, yes, this could also present a problem. However, your balance on the loan that existed prior to the sale will be available to go back into the market. But I think over the long haul, it would add to the shortage in available loanable funds.
Okay, Reg, I think. Okay. Detective Harden, in Fort Worth, our prime concern in the past has been with marijuana, hashish, this sort of thing. What about the drug problem in our city schools today here in Fort Worth?
Among students, Dr. Brothers, do you think it has reached its plateau, or that it has fallen off? Or can we look forward to more?
Pollution. We will have more unrest directed against problems of intolerance, against the difficulty of the poor, and so on. So I think we will continue to see unrest, but in a form directed against the evils of society rather than the supposed, or in many cases, real evils of the university that the student attends.
Essentially, you're saying then that some unrest is good and it helps society?
Certainly, if we didn't have student unrest, we'd still be polluting our rivers and our streams and our lakes. Students have brought to awareness of the population a great many problems that we face, and they're continuing to be involved in. First of all, they have the time and the energy to be committed to something outside themselves. When people get to having the problems of supporting a family, the immediate problem of making enough money to bring home to wife and children is so great that people begin to turn their energy to that rather than to the overall problems of ecology. Students have the time to be interested, the youth and enthusiasm to carry this interest forward, and I think a great many reforms have been started with the student movement. However, there are some students who are demonstrating and revolting for the sake and delight of it. If you put up a sign saying we're going to march against toothbrushes, you would get a certain percentage who would march against toothbrushes. But I think that this is the smaller group. The larger group are genuinely idealistic and genuinely want to create changes to make this a better world to live in.
Dr. Brothers, what about femininity? Some schools say that women who partake careers give up or lose some of their femininity. Is there so?
Not at all. The only thing that is basically feminine in all societies is an interest in men, a sexual interest in men. And the only thing that is basically masculine in all societies is an interest in women. There are some societies, for example, the Todos, who believe that housework is too holy for a woman to do. And there are others who feel that only men know how to take care of babies, and they do. That is their job. All the rest is culturally determined, something that we teach people. There is no reason in the world why a woman should not use whatever her abilities are to the fullest, whether she gets her great pleasure and joy and fulfillment out of bringing up a family, or she gets fulfillment out of carving a career for herself, or she may find that she gets fulfillment out of both, giving
Well, I think it'll have some obvious effects on the real estate industry for buyers, for sellers, and for brokers alike. And personally, I hope it doesn't come about. I think the housing industry has had numerous setbacks in recent years from the increased building cost and the shortage of mortgage funds. And I think this would just add more to the problems that we have in the housing industry right now. I hope that the savings and loan will change their position on it and it will not come about.
Will the Fort Worth Board of Realtors become involved, and will you take any action in this case?
Well, I've not had an opportunity to discuss this with our various committees, but I feel like we'll be very much involved in it if it is in fact pursued as it seems to be.
Well, I think it should be done everywhere. The fact is that young people are going out and dying for wars in which they have no part in making. And the fact is that in a short period of time in this vacuum that young people are growing up and becoming knowledgeable. The younger you are, the more possible that you are much more educated. And it is because of this, especially in the developing countries, where the younger people are more educated, this power relationship isn't reflected. And I think the older people haven't accepted this sudden change of such population growth and development. In the past, it was that the older people knew everything, but it isn't so anymore. and you have to adjust to the situation. I think it is right.
I think there will be more unrest, but unrest not directed against the university. I think that this has reached a plateau and is declining for a number of reasons. First of all, many of the student demands were very reasonable demands and were met. An increase in the number of disadvantaged students, an increased voice in the shaping of their education and in the running of the institutions. We find now that presidents' and deans' doors are open to students. They're willing to talk and to discuss the crisis before it gets to aggressive proportions. There are also more students involved in the running of the universities, even seats on board of directors or trusteeships for students. I think that students will turn against their universities less as a symbol of what is wrong with the outside world and much more directly against the problems of the outside world.
This is my overhand cast. Reel handle up, drop.
Ann Strobel may not look like
down.
a typical fisherman, but she holds the world's record in fly casting.
This is my underhand cast. And this is my cowboy shot, and I shoot it from the hip the easy way.
And do you really fish, catch fish?
Yes, I go fishing quite often and I catch fish.
How did you start fly casting?
Well, I started fly casting whenever I started learning how to cast. I put the two of them together. Actually, I learned how to plug cast first, and then I went from plug casting to fly casting.
You did it to catch fish?
Yes, I did, because you can enjoy fishing with a fly rod, catching a panfish or catching bass, walleyes. It's loads of fun.
How much practice did you have to have before you got to be a world's champion? And how much practice do you have before, for instance, you give a show, as you're going to give here at the vacation show?
Well, I'll answer your first question first. To become a professional caster and a champion, I used to spend approximately 4 and 5 hours a day practicing. And on weekends, sometimes as high as 8 hours. And whenever I do a show, I usually come in every day before the show opens up, and I usually cast at least 1 hour or 2 hours a day.
And that's what you're going to do now?
That's what I'm going to do now.
Ann is one of a dozen or so performers or acts appearing here at the Southwest Sports and Vacation Show. The show is at the Dallas Memorial Auditorium, and it begins tomorrow and goes through March 22nd. Besides shows by Ann, it has a full range of exhibits of vacation and sports paraphernalia. This is Teel Salaun reporting.
John, you Irishmen are not living up to the Texas tradition. We Texans always do things in a big way. What about this parade today?
Well, as you probably don't realize, we didn't have the parade last year, and I think that year layoff kind of fouled it up. But next year, I think we'll pick up ground and we'll be right back where we were a few years ago.
Yeah, well, if you're celebrating tonight and you're going to start boozing it up, probably, as all good Irishmen do, what are you going to do on Tuesday, which is actually St. Pat's Day?
Well, actually, I think we'll do things in a little more of a religious way. We'll go to Mass at 8 o'clock in the morning to have a breakfast, and then everybody will go their own way and maybe have a few more casual parties at home or something like that.